I got water, energy drink, beer,
Oh no, I'm all good. I got my Crystal Light.
whiskey. I know you said you did an edible today. The other day, we got a weed pen, whatever you want, man. If you decide you want it, you can have it. Other than that, are you good?
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to rock and roll.
At any point, if you need something, water, whatever, just ask.
Yeah.
Arrow, you're good, right? Okay. Um.
Dude, I just saw a video where a guy, his wife was sleeping,
Uh
and he went over with smelling salts and woke her up with them.
I've never tried them before. Have you tried them?
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to use them when I with powerlifting all the time.
I've never used them, and I seen it on Joe Rogan that they would like bust them out sometime and smell them. And I was like, man, I've never actually tried it, but I thought it would be cool just to have them on here in case someone ever wants to try it.
Yeah. So do you know how they work? So what they do is they like dilate your blood vessels, so therefore you can intake more oxygen. So that when you're knocked out, you get that big rush of oxygen. When you're doing something like powerlifting and you're really forcing yourself, you don't pass out because you have more oxygen consumption because you're
How's it do it though? What's in it that makes it?
it's got to be the ammonia.
That's what I was thinking. It's just got to be a crazy
Have you
amount
smelled
of
it
ammonia.
yet?
No. This is sealed.
Oh man,
You think we should do it on the podcast tonight? We could do it.
dude. You got to be ready, man. You got to like hold it out here and work your way in because if you just go like full nose, you're gonna be laid out.
Really, that bad? And I tried to get like the most intense stuff too. Like this is like I got it off Amazon, so I don't know like how crazy of stuff you can actually get off of there. But I tried to get the number one rated one that was on there. So I don't know. I might not try it tonight, but we might. You never know where the podcast might lead.
Dude, I've had some that was brand new, took it out of the bag, put it in my gym bag, got in my truck the next day, and my eyes were watering just from it being in a plastic container inside my gym bag and then locked in my truck.
Holy cow! I mean that's what you're looking for, though, right?
Oh, yeah,
when you're
absolutely.
going to use it, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hop into this.
Okay.
Or let me introduce you. We're ready, probably rolling. Joey,
Yes, sir.
thank you for coming out to the podcast.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. So Joey, I kind of know a little bit about you, but we've only met one time.
Right.
I reached out to you because my sister actually recommended you. She met you in some sense, and she's like, "Hey, you and this gentleman have a lot in common. I know you're in real estate.
Yeah.
That was like your big thing you got started on. But now you're also stepping into the fitness facility world, which I really want to know a lot about.
Okay.
But I'm gonna I want to know where you started from. Like, the real estate was the real estate the first thing you did?
The very first thing that I did, like, legitimately, let's put it that way. So I'd always had side hustles, and I even after I went to work for myself, I still was kind of just working out in my garage, doing things for cash, things like that. But it wasn't until I got to real estate that I actually was licensed and had a building and had an office and had like a full business.
Yeah. How old were you then? I'm just trying to picture a timeline.
I guess I'd have been probably about 27, 28 years old.
Okay, so you're just doing some little side hustles before that. Were you working a 9-to-5 job?
So I had started out, I went to school for auto body, became a house painter, worked for my father for a while, got laid off one winter, found a job in the newspaper, became a welder and metal fabricator, did that for, I guess it was about 3.5 years when I got laid off from that. That was roughly 2018. And then from there, I just kind of went into business for myself. I hustled cars, I welded and fabricated out of my own house, and it wasn't until we were pregnant with my son is when I actually got into the whole real estate thing. It's something I'd always wanted to get into, but at that point in my life, now looking back on it, I know a million ways to get money. Mm-hmm. But when you've never dabbled in anything else before, you're like, how do I get money? Now I can make phone calls and get a couple $100,000 like it's nothing.
Sure. But you're saying, but you got to work for it though, right?
Oh yeah.
Like you're saying, like jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually going out because you. So the listeners don't know. I kind of know, but you also do. Like you actually work on the homes too.
Yes.
So like when you say you own the real estate company, did you first step into brokerage? Like you were like actually a broker for real estate. You were selling it.
Yeah. So it started out originally with me being a rehabber and flipper and everything like that. So to give you a quick story real quick, My son was born with what's called an omphalocele. He was born with his liver, intestines, and stomach outside of his body. He also had a major hole in his heart where it was between the oxygenated and unoxygenated side. So literally any oxygenated blood would just shunt over to the other side. He also had what's called pulmonary hypertension, which is high blood pressure of the lungs. So he was in the hospital for his first 6 months, and then he was in and out for 2 years. He's 12 years old now, healthy as a horse. You never know anything was ever wrong with him. But back then, we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So what happened is my former wife had to become a stay-at-home mom. And what we did there is my father, who had been a house painter his entire life, had some equity in his home, pulled the equity out of his home, and that's what we used. My father and I, he gave me this opportunity that we bought our first house together. So if you're familiar with the BRRRR method, buy, rehab, rent, and then refinance. And yeah, so depending on how many BRRRRs you got.
Yeah.
So we started out, we flipped our first house. That gave us some revenue. Then we purchased the house. We used that as our very first rental. Once we got done with that, we got a line of credit on that. We used that to purchase our second home. And then when the second home was done, then we turned it into a permanent financing, moved on to the third house, fourth house, blah, 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 blah. So to get back to your question, initially, I got my real estate license just to help me as an investor.
Was that to just avoid the 6% that you were going to have to pay the...
Yes and no. It was circa 2008, 2010. Let's see, this is 23. So I guess it was probably about 2011. The market was flooded with foreclosures.
Yeah.
And
a great time to get in.
Oh, super cheap foreclosures.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm not kidding you. I mean, in a nice middle class neighborhood like Afton, we were buying houses. Cheapest one I bought is like $17,000. I'd never gotten anything under $100,000. Over $100,000 in Afton. Now Afton's full of $500,000 homes. It's insane what has happened to the housing market. But to call up an agent and be like, "Hey man, come drop everything to come show me this house," it was a pain in the butt. So I ended up getting my license just to help us buy houses. As soon as something came on the market, I could run over there, let myself in, and then I come to realize that when I was flipping houses or renting houses, that I would go in, I was a guy swinging the hammer. So I'd spend 3, 4, 5, 6 months on each project. It was just me and my father working on these. And we would, we would spend a ton of money and a ton of time. Where when I was a real estate agent, I could walk you through that house. I could drop all the information on you, all the knowledge that I have, everything, let you know what's going to be, what's right, what's wrong, what all this is going to be, and then shuffle some papers and make $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 on a transaction. And I have 10 hours in it.
Yeah, and move on very quickly.
Yeah, so that's what I initially got my real estate license. Then I realized that I can make some good money being an agent. And then just being who I am in Missouri, you have to be an agent for 2 years before you're allowed to be a broker. So after my 2 years in, I immediately got my broker's license, opened up my own brokerage, and started hiring agents. So I've got 16 agents that work for me now. There's only a couple that are retail. Most of the guys and girls are investors themselves. And the reason that I say that is because I have a pretty open and flexible brokerage that it's my name on it. So every time they sell something, they put a sign in the yard, they're advertising for me. So I don't mind doing this. And what I do is that anything that any of my clients do, any of my agents do, they can charge as much or as little as they want. They can, if it's a house that they're doing that's their own, I don't charge them a commission because I don't feel they charge themselves a commission. So the whole thing is anytime they make money off of a transaction, I get 25% of it for taking the risk being the broker. So that's just kind of how I got into it and built all of it.
Dang, you're taking 25% per transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like when you say per transaction, does that's not including the sale of a home, is it?
So that's just as their commission as an agent. So say on average, I don't want to say that there's an average because you can charge whatever you want, but normally you're about 3%, 2.7 to 3.3. So we'll just call it 3%. So if they, if they sell a house for $100,000, then they get $3,000, and then I get 25% of that.
Oh, that I did not know.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So what it is that.
Oh, no. Wait. I'm sorry. You get 25% of the $3,000.
Correct.
Okay. See, in my head, I was still a little confused there. Okay. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Because a lot of places they'll do more than that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are a percent base. So or like I'm trying to think of how the real estate company I go through. It's 3%, but I think they take like the brokerage or the like when you own the brokerage. What are you? The broker.
Correct.
The broker I think maybe takes 2/3 of the sale. And then the person selling it only gets like 1% of the sale.
Yeah, so it all depends. Every brokerage is different. Some of them have a flat fee that you just pay in like $500. Other places are 30% that gets paid in. Other places are 50% that gets paid in. In my opinion, the ones that are the worst are the ones that have teams. So what happens is there'll be a team of 5 people that work together. Great, you're bringing in a tremendous amount of leads. But then when you do a sale, first it gets split with the house. Then it gets split with the team. So by the time you get done with what was originally a $3,000 commission, you're probably walking away with like $450, man.
Yeah, because there's more hands in the pot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're a lot of people when they get in real estate, it's because they want to make some money. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what's so attractive,
right,
about selling real estate. I've thought about it before.
Yeah,
it's a great idea,
dude. It was a killer thing before interest rates went through the roof. So I'm very lucky that I have my skill set to fall back on and kind of fell into general contracting, because if it wasn't for that, I'd be absolutely broke right now. With interest rates at what they are, normally this time of year, I've got probably $3 million worth of sales. I probably have $500,000 this year.
Yeah, it's slowed down a ton.
Oh, and it's crazy. And then as a real estate agent, and I'm always learning. And there's no like, I take that back. There's plenty of books that tell you how to be a good real estate agent. And one of the big things is learn how to not reinvent the wheel. There's a million people that have been doing this for 100 years. Just go with what they're doing that's making a bunch of money. But what I didn't realize until just recently is what's called a transaction coordinator. So my job as a real estate agent is I take you house shopping. Then we find something. I write a contract. Then I hand it off to somebody else, and they do all my work from contract to close. And normally they charge like $350. So literally my only time that I am involved in being a real estate agent is out going house shopping with you. And what's funny is that I don't even really have to go and look for houses for you anymore, because with this day and age with the internet, pretty much everything that I have access to, you have access to. The only thing that you don't have access to is you're not allowed to walk into a stranger's home.
Yeah.
And I am.
Right.
So most of the time, like, you'll call me up and be like, hey, Joey, I want to go see this house. And I'm like, when are you going to do it? Tomorrow night, 7:00. Boom. Schedule it. We go check it out. We walk through it. And that's
people, now that there's apps, people already found the house that they want. Mm-hmm. And the apps have made it so easy now that like you can literally put on the app, like, this is the house I'm looking for in this area. Send me a notification when it pops up.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're finding out almost as fast as you are. Now, MLS, doesn't it show you 24 hours in advance when a house is coming on the market?
There is what's called coming soons, but all these websites that are out there, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Redfin, all this kind of stuff, they all pull their information from the MLS. Mm-hmm. So it used to be that there was a delay, and that was just technology. It had to get printed here, and then it had to get it repeated out to here. Well, technology is so advanced now that there's really not a delay anymore. As soon as it goes in the MLS, it's going to pop up on another website, and then everybody has access to it. Now, there are people that do coming soons are just kind of to more or less try to get a bidding war. Say, hey, we got this place coming. It's not going to be available for 10 days. Let's get 10 days of exposure. And now hopefully more than one person comes in and tries to bid on this house. So that way we can get a better deal out of it.
That was big during like when interest rates were down 3%. Mm-hmm. That's how every house was.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't buying real estate at that time because I'm the kind of person where I make my money when I buy the house, not when I sell the house.
Yeah.
And yeah, when a house comes on the market and someone's offering $25,000 more than what they put it on the market for, and there's a bidding war there.
Yeah.
At that point, I just took a step away from real estate, and that's when I really start to make my change. Not just because of that, but it was just another reason why I was like, okay, real estate's a great investment tool, but real estate, because I thought I was going to be a real estate guru at one time, and that's when I was really starting to realize, like, okay, I can't make the housing market go up and down, but I felt like I could make more of a difference in my business than I could in real estate.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I started making my transition at that time.
Yeah, you felt like you had more control over that situation, that investment.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely right. We definitely need to move on to talk about the gym kind of stuff, but something I want to throw in your ear real quick, that's something you probably didn't even realize, is something that to start thinking about as far as real estate investing is purchasing mortgages. And what I mean by that is there's what's called an assumable loan. So say, for instance, I bought a house a couple years ago at 3%. I can actually sell that mortgage with my house. So you can buy this person's mortgage that's 3%, and then you have to get a loan for the balance. So let's just make up numbers. Say it's a $300,000 home. They bought it for $250,000. They've paid it down to $200,000. There's $200,000 left on the note at 3%. You can assume that loan at the $200,000 that's owed on it at 3%, and then say you're buying it for $300K. You get another loan for $100K that's at today's rates of like 8% or something like that. So there's still a lot of avenues to get into real estate for cheap.
I did not know you could do that.
Yeah, that not a lot of people know about. And I think that's something that's really, now that interest rates are like 8%, man, that's really going to be a tool. I had a couple not too long ago. They were engaged to get married, and unfortunately it didn't work out, and they split up. And I had actually sold them the house, and they were going to sell it. And then the boyfriend was like, I think I'm just going to keep this, man, because I've got a 3% interest rate. And so the girlfriend went and bought a new condo and everything like that, but he literally didn't move just because he wanted to save his interest rate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Your payment will probably, it'll probably go up. I don't even know. Like, if you buy the same house, the exact same price, but one's at 6% and one's at 3%.
Yeah.
Your payment's probably going to go up, what, $250 a month?
Yeah, let's look.
Yeah, let's do the math real quick.
Let's see.
Let's do it on like a $200,000 house.
Which one is it?
Are you just using like a mortgage calculator?
Yeah, so actually, out of as much as I dislike Zillow and everybody in the world dislikes Zillow, Zillow has a really good mortgage calculator app.
I like Zillow as an app. The problem, their fault is like they don't update the listings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times where like a listing will be on there for a long time, and it should have been deleted, and it still says it's available, and then you call it, and they're like, "Oh, that was gone 6 months ago." That's what I hate about the app. I found Realtor is a pretty good one. A new app that I've been using, or a new website that I've been using. It's not an app yet, but I had the gentleman on the podcast, and I just really like the idea of it. It's called Bright Investor. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
So Bright Investor is this website that this guy designed to have. Basically, you're combining everything into one website.
Mm-hmm.
So like before, like you would have to go to a website to find out like what the schools are like in the area, or what the crime's like in the area, or to maybe like pull like local comps on houses. They designed this website where you can literally type in an address, and it has like a radar. Like say if I want to buy a house in Texas, it can show you a radar of what kind of crimes are in the area. Like if it's really red or if it's green, like if there's a lot of crime, it's red. And you can break it down to the house and see how many crimes have been committed in that house. Like you can go to it and you can be like, okay, the person that's been living in this house for the past 2 years has been making meth, and the cops are going there every single week.
Yeah.
And you can see that all on his app. And so you can also, it also has like a way that you can see like if houses are going up or down in that area. So like if you're looking to move to an area and you're like, is this a good area to buy in? You can see, are the houses, because nowadays it's hard to get to that 1% rule when you're trying to get a rental property. So a lot of people are kind of switching over to, maybe like a 0.50 rule. and just make sure that the houses in the area are going up in value.
Oh yeah.
So I see that a lot now, and that's like a feature that they had on there that I was like, man, that's really helpful, because it can be hard to be able to figure that stuff out, and it's cool to just be able to go all just one website and have it all the statistics and everything there.
Oh, without a doubt. So if we look at a $200,000 home, and this is pulling out all your escrows, all your down payments, everything. This is just hardcore principal and interest. If we have a $200,000 home at a 3% interest rate, your payment is $843 a month for a 30-year loan. You will pay $103,555 in interest over those 3 years. Now, if we take that and we convert it to an 8% interest rate, what we're at right now, your payment almost doubles. It goes up to $1,468, and you will pay $328,000 in interest. So an additional, $205,000 in interest over 30 years. So, I mean, that interest rate makes an incredible difference. So if you can assume somebody else's mortgage, I mean, that's a game changer.
Amazing way to do it. Yeah. And like you're going to have to float that extra $100,000 at 8% probably, but still, you're still paying $200,000 of it at 3%.
Yeah.
Which is a massive game changer.
And this isn't something new, meaning that when I bought my very first house when I was 20 years old, they had what was called an 80-20 loan. So it was actually 0% down. So you actually got two mortgages. You got your first mortgage for 80%, and that mortgage was at a good interest rate. And then you had a second mortgage, which was considered your down payment. That was at a higher interest rate, but you didn't have PMI, you didn't have anything because of the fact that you had the 20% down. And then between those two, you had zero out of pocket to buy. So buying a home with a first and second mortgage really isn't anything new. It's just now people are going to be taking advantage of assuming loans.
Yeah, for me, I'd much rather do it that way. But all my properties are all investment properties anyway. So it's like I want to keep as much cash on hand as I can to be able to fix the properties.
Yeah.
But I always tell everyone, I'm like, I'll freaking stretch property out for 60 years. I don't care. I don't care about ever paying the place off.
Yeah, as long as it cash flows.
As long as the cash flows for me, that's all that matters. Now, someone that wants to buy a house, sure, get the cheapest interest rate, lock it in, pay it off, and be happy with it. But for me, I'm not scared to buy. Interest rates, they only play a small factor into buying real estate for me. But as far as like, if I buy it at 8%, that's fine. But I'm going to have to get the house a little bit cheaper. So I'm going to negotiate off of that interest rate price. And then I'm just going to hope that one day the interest rates drop again.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm certain that they will. They go up and down. They've gone up and down. They might not go back down to 3%, but if they go down to 5%, I'll be tickled to death, and I'll refinance it, and I'll move on with my life.
Yeah, no, I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've had millions and millions worth of debt, but I cash flowed so well off of it. Then on the flip side, where I'm at right now is I sold a big part of my portfolio, turned around and paid off my office, paid off my shop, paid off my house, paid off my property, paid off all these things. And I was like, oh man, this is so nice not to have that weight on my shoulders anymore. But I went from cash flowing $6,000 a month to cash flowing $750 a month.
Yeah.
So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Did you seeing both sides of it? Which one would you rather have?
I'd much rather have the cash flow.
You'd much rather keep the cash flow because it's easy. Like when you're reading the books and you're listening to other people, and they're telling you like, keep investing. Just pay attention to the cash flow. Make sure your cash flow is above your debt. That way that your cash flow can pay off your debt. Keep paying the debt payments. But once you start hitting a certain number, like right now, I'm over $10,000 a month that I have to pay into debt.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where it's like, man, maybe I should pay some of this stuff off. But then you got to remember, like, hey, you're doing this for a reason, and you also got to remember that if you really pay attention to it, eventually it will pay off.
Yeah.
If you're taking care of it, and you want to play like the medium ground, eventually it will pay off. But you have to be, for however long you got this debt, 20 years, 25, 30 years, you do have to play it somewhat smart. You can't just go out and gamble it all away because, yeah, you do have to make the payment and you do have to pay for the repairs, roofs, AC units, stuff like that. So you do have to play it. You have to be smart with your money for the next 20 years. And that's where it gets scary. I think a lot of people start to get scared because it's so much, once they hit like a certain number, like $1 million in debt, that's when they're starting to be like, do I start paying this off? And I, just now here recently, I've started to think about that kind of stuff. I'm like, because I got a house now that I bought in 2017. I paid $45,000 for it. I'm down to like $17,000 or something like that. Pretty cheap. I have the cash where I'm like, man, what if I just paid it off and took the $700 cash flow that I get for it? But then it's like, yeah, but that $17,000 could be another down payment on another property that could cash flow another additional $200 that could eventually pay off as well. So I fight in my mind back and forth on it.
Without a doubt. And two things I want to say real quick. One is that you don't know what's going to happen in life. So me having this cash flow was fantastic. I got divorced, man. I was depressed. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to grind. I didn't want to invest. I didn't want to be successful at that moment in my life. If I didn't have this passive income coming in, I would have never made it. And then 2 years ago, I think I mentioned this to you the other day, I ended up having diverticulitis that was undiagnosed, ruptured my intestines, and I was on a colostomy bag for like 3 months. I was in the hospital for a while. Like, I couldn't do anything. I mean, I went from this big power lifter running a bunch of steroids to I literally lost 20 pounds in a week in the hospital. And, if I didn't have passive income coming in each month, there was no way I would have been able to support my family. There was no way I would have kept a roof over my own head. So, that side of it, I absolutely get with. But, you talk about this paying things off and it's getting good debt, how frightening it is. And one thing you got to keep in mind is that there's a next step. And you don't realize that. When you first get into real estate, you're like, fuck, man, I want to get some houses. Then you're like, okay, man, I want to get a portfolio of $1 million worth of houses. And then, you don't realize that the next step is an apartment complex. So eventually, when you have this $1 million worth of let's just say $1 million worth of homes, and you have $500,000, what's a better number here? You have, I don't know. You have a bunch of equity. You pull that equity out and you use that as a down payment on an apartment complex. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you went from having 10 doors to having 50 doors, and you went from cash flowing $5,000 a month to cash flowing $15,000 a month. And you don't realize that at this step is that, hey, I can tap into all this, do an umbrella loan, do a portfolio loan on these 10 properties, pull out 20% to be able to put it as a down payment on this apartment complex over here. I have spent no money out of my pocket, and I have now quadrupled my portfolio.
Yeah, I've definitely started to think about that, actually. It's like, where am I going to my next step? Because single-family homes can be a lot to maintain because there's a yard. They each have their own single roof in it. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of them have a garage outside where people are filling up with their junk. There's a whole lot more to maintenance. Yeah. Whereas when you buy an apartment complex, you have a very small yard to cut. You have one parking lot out front. There's not like a people don't have a garage that they're filling with junk in it. There's not a basement to take care of. You have one roof to fix. Yeah. Every place does have its own AC unit. Every place has its own hot water heater, probably. So yes, each unit does come with an additional things to fix, but I feel like the single family homes are the ones that always the fence starts to fall down, so you got to fix it, or the back porch is starting to fall down. You start to get these apartment complexes. Everybody's in one location. Yeah, you go in the same spot every time. You buy 50 AC units. You buy, it's all just I feel like to me it's starting to make more sense to get into these bigger multi-unit real estate properties than it is to have one single family over here, and then another one 50 miles away over here, and then another one 50 miles over here. Because one day I'm driving over here, and then the next day I'm driving over here. And it's just chaos all over the place. It's like I could just trade them all in.
Yeah, and another big thing that you gotta talk about here is vacancies. Say you have 4 single family homes. One guy moves out. You're fucked. You literally, that's probably all of your income right there, all your profit margin. You probably have to do some fixing up on this house. Now it's money out of your pocket. I mean, it's a big deal. Well, if you got a 50-door apartment complex and some Yahoo moves out, you don't notice it. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal. On top of that, the cost of each door. I mean, when we're talking about an apartment complex, each door might be $40,000, $50,000. You can't really touch a $40,000 or $50,000 house anymore.
No, it's very, very rare. And like I don't know if we'll really see in our lifetime, unless you get into a very rural, poor community. Mm-hmm. But even then, it's gonna be a rough neighborhood, and then it's gonna be rough people moving into it as well. So it's not gonna be a fun one to own. But yeah, it's gonna be very hard to touch a $50,000 home.
So have you had good luck with being a landlord? Your tenants, you have good tenants?
I have better luck nowadays. But I've had a lot of bad ones. Yeah, and I had to learn the hard, because I'm just a big-hearted guy, and I want to give people opportunity in life, and I want to see people succeed. And that's where it cost me. That's where I got hurt the most, because and it mainly came from people on drugs. Mm-hmm. They
weren't sharing.
Yeah, they weren't sharing me. That was the problem. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and when someone's on drugs, they just want they'll tell you anything.
Oh yeah,
to get what they want. And they'll clean themselves up. They make themselves look great. They tell you they changed. And I think people that have reformed and they're not on drugs, they do deserve a second chance.
Oh, absolutely.
Or another chance. I've known lots of people that have gone down a bad path and have cleaned themselves up and actually have made something from themselves. And that's why I would do it. But the couple times I had done it, it ended up biting me in the butt. And yeah, it's just part of renting. Nowadays, I'm much more strict who I let in. And I also, like, something I've really started to do is when someone moves in, I tell them, when they're filling out the application, we're looking at the house, I tell them straight up, I'm like, this is a business. Rent's due on the 1st by 5 o'clock. If I haven't heard from you by 5 o'clock on the 1st, I'm calling my attorney and I'm starting the eviction process right there. And so I'm like, if you can't pay, let me know the day before. Let me know what's up. I just had my girl that rents one of my single family homes over in Owensville. She knows that. She let me know last week. The 1st is still 15 days away. She let me know. She's like, hey, my automatic payments come through. It will be because of something. It won't come through until the 2nd. She's like, I can get you paid on the 3rd. I said, hey, no problem. I'm good with that. Thanks for letting me know. So that's kind of like, I'm just like very strict with that. And then I also tell them, I'm like, take good care of my property, and we won't have a problem. Pay me on the 1st, take good care of my property, we won't have a problem. I won't be up your neck, I won't be over here all the time, and I won't be kicking you out if you do those 2 things. If you don't do those 2 things, we're gonna have problems. And I'm very strict to that the whole way through the release.
So a couple things that I want to throw out that has really helped me be a successful landlord. One, you talk about rent being due on the 1st of the month. Our rent is due on the 5th of the month. And if you pay before the 1st, we take $20 off. And you'd be amazed by how many people will pay early just to save that $20.
Okay.
Another thing is just the process that I go through to get a tenant. And it's a very lengthy process. So where I hear all these horror stories from people that are landlords is because the first guy that shows up and it's like, hey, I want to take this place, they get all excited, take their money, and then they never see any money again.
Yeah, they're just happy that the place isn't sitting, and because they're worried that it's going to cost them money.
Right. So most of my leads come from when I put something out for rent. Most of my leads come through some kind of digital form. So I start with their name. First thing I do is throw it into social media. If it's racial slurs or party girls or just trouble, forget about it. They're automatically out. Then the next step is that I tell them to call me. If they don't have the ability to actually make a phone call, then forget about it. Next, I get them on the phone, and immediately you can tell the demeanor of somebody just by talking to them. Then I schedule something with them. If they miss it or they reschedule without like a big window. If they reschedule a couple hours early, forget about it. If they like a week before, they're like, hey man, I got to work this day. Can we move it to the next day? That's not a big deal. But, then we do an actual visit. If they miss it, they're late, they're out. Then, just as you've heard me talk to you, people spill their guts, man, especially to a landlord. And you'd be amazed at what people will tell you about their life and their history and what's going on and everything like that. And then from there, we actually do a background check, a full application, a screening. We use an independent third party. The applicant has to pay for it. They're not going to pay for it if they don't think they're going to pass it. So normally, and then they actually get the screening done. The screening is like, hey, this, that, and the other. Me as a landlord, I'm like, hey, if you had perfect credit, I'd be selling you a house. So I'm kind of relaxed on that, but it all depends on what it is. If it's medical bills, I don't care. If it's late car payments, but if it's like mortgages or rent collections or utilities or things that are housing related, then that's when I say no. But by the time I get through all those steps, not to mention that I've fully rehabbed the house myself, I never have any problems as a landlord, knock on wood. I've got people that have been there I've got one tenant that's been there for probably 10 years. She's paid for the house twice now. And it's wonderful. I mean, and she'll never move because I've never raised rent. It made sense when she moved in, and now I've got to lifer because,
I think that's really important. I always say that. I tell them, I'm like, you're grandfathered in. Keep taking care of the place. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep paying me on time, and I'll leave you grandfathered in. Yeah, that's how I feel too. I feel like they deserve that.
Oh yeah.
I feel like if they've been with you that long and they've been treating you good, I feel like that's the one thing that they certainly earned. And also the application fee. I feel like that is something that I also do to help weed out a lot of the bad applicants. And I only charge $25, $25 to $50. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I actually put someone in a house, probably over 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Honestly, so I've had some pretty good tenants. Also, I guess I haven't bought a house in a couple of years, but the market changed, and I just kind of focused my direction a different way. But yeah, that $25 would make someone just go a totally different direction. And I tell them it's for a background check. So I don't know if it's know that they won't pass a background check, or if it's the fact that they don't want to waste $25 in case they don't actually get accepted. Now, something I did do is I told them if I accept them, I will give them their application feedback.
Oh, that's really cool. That's a cool thing you're doing right there, man. I like that.
Yeah, so if they, because I don't want to just scare someone away because, right now everybody's looking for a house. Like everybody wants something to rent. There's literally not enough houses for everybody in this world, I feel like right now.
Affordable housing.
Affordable houses. Yes, affordable houses. And so, so I feel like there is some people that, maybe just worry that I'm just taking their money and then just running with it. I tell them, and I actually only allow so many applicants to put an application in. And, once I hit like 10, I'm like, okay, I need to go through these 10 before I accept any more.
Yeah, I only do one at a time. Yeah, I don't ever put anything out. I watch some of these landlords, and God bless them, they make a ton of money, and that's totally fine. Everybody has different moral code and everything like that. But they'll literally do a cattle call. They'll be like, "Hey, man, on Sunday we'll do an open house from 12 to 2. Come by, take a look at the place, fill out an application if you want." And I personally don't really agree with that because I feel like that's unfair to A, the applicants, B, you don't get to have that chance to have that one-on-one interaction with your tenant. And so I don't think you have an opportunity to pick out a good tenant if you're just literally going by a piece of paper because, what somebody is on paper and what they are in real life are completely different things.
Oh, yeah.
You look through something and you're like, oh, yeah, I see here that you had a bankruptcy. I guess you don't pay your bills. No, man, I had stage 4 cancer. My dog died and I lost a child at the same time. Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, then, that makes sense.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you never really know anyone until you actually get to meet them in person.
Yeah.
Well, I just started noticing that just the way someone treats their car, too. That's a big one. Like, if somebody's car is all ragged out and there's trash all filled throughout it, there's no room for anyone else to sit except for in the driver's seat. Well, more than likely, your house is going to start to look like that, too, eventually. So those are the kind of things that I just start paying attention to, like whenever I'm going to rent to someone. I know you're a big real estate guy, but you're getting ready to open up a gym.
Yes, sir.
And I want to know, some ins and outs, why you decided to go towards that direction, and just like hear what you got planned for your gym, everything like that.
So the big thing, the gym is like a bucket list kind of thing, man. Let's be honest. Nobody's really ever gotten rich off of a gym. But you know what? The amount of things that I'll be able to do to get
I think the guy that owns Planet Fitness would beg to differ.
That's
I bet he's doing pretty well.
okay.
I bet he's doing well.
You get a valid point there.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day maybe one day if I scale all this and franchise it. But my big thing is I want to be able to give back to the community. And there's so many things between troubled youth or obesity or, just somebody that, you're like, oh, I'm 70 years old. I can't move around anymore. And like, dude, come in here in silver sneakers, which is, is paid for by your insurance, and come in here and get active and do something. So what really stood out to me and how I kind of fell into this is I did a powerlifting meet in Paducah, Kentucky, and a gentleman owned this gym, and he was a firefighter, and he had this gym just something for the community. It wasn't really to make any money off of, and we went in there for a powerlifting meet, and he took money at the door, and then he matched that, and he donated it all to Kids Without Christmas. And I've done 2 powerlifting meets there.
Do you remember who the guy was?
Jake Blackwell.
Okay. It was just like a local,
Yeah.
like local powerlifter, not like anyone big on social media, not a professional, nothing like that.
Yeah, I only found out about this because the company that was doing the powerlifting meet there, the federation, was supposed to be like this nitty gritty, like guys look like they're from prison and there's pit bulls and shit there and everything like that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a hell of an experience.
Yeah.
So that's just how I kind of fell into it. And unfortunately, during COVID, he had a small business loan. He didn't own the building. He just leased it. And all of a sudden he had $8,000 a month in overhead and nothing to do. I mean, nobody was allowed to come to his gym because of COVID. So I ended up buying all the equipment directly from the bank. I worked with the bank and liquidized it and everything like that, liquidated it and brought it back to St. Louis. And I've just had it sitting in shipping containers since. But really the big thing for me is just to be able to do something and give back to the community that way. I want to be able to have charity events. I want to be able to do, powerlifting meets. I want to be able to, like, we've got a child right now that's a friend of mine from high school. His kid, unfortunately, was getting bullied at school, and 11 years old, man, stopped eating, ended up in the hospital, diagnosed with anorexia, bulimia, and body dysphoria. I didn't even know that was actual a medical thing. I just thought that was a term that everybody threw around.
Yeah, just the body, the guy, gym rats use. Yeah.
So we started training him. It doesn't matter, but he doesn't have to worry about it. So it's something that we can do to give back to the community, and that makes me feel good. That's what I want to do.
Let's tell everyone that's listening what kind of gym you're opening, because there's tons of different style gyms.
Yeah.
So and like I kind of know, but explain to everybody that's listening what kind of gym that you have envisioned, because you guys already own the building. So because I'm just going to fill them in because we've already chatted about it.
Well, this building is not the original one. So the original one that I was going to put it in was 3,500 square feet, and I own that. This is going to be one that's leased, and it's 13,000 square feet. So
yes, it's
got a lot more room.
It's a 13,000 square foot building. But it's going to be more than just equipment. It's not just going to be just like a normal lifter, because you can go to Planet Fitness and you can just get the equipment.
Yeah.
You're going to be more than that. So what all are you going to have in this facility?
So my business partner, Nick Sargent, he's coming in with all this Kaiser equipment, and I wasn't actually familiar with it at all until I met Nick. And what that is it's all pneumatically controlled equipment for athletes. And you have infinite amount of adjustments and feedbacks on the machines. So you can it can make you pitch faster. It can make your reflexes quicker. It can make you do all these different things. It's not just getting bigger, stronger, faster. It's actually fundamentals and the way that your nerves work with your brain and everything like that. So he's got all of his Kaiser equipment. We're also going to have all our traditional lifting equipment, and then we're going to have powerlifting equipment. We're going to have, if you're not familiar with a monolift, A monolift is what the big boys use for squatting. And instead of you having to step back from the rack actually has arms that swing out. So you just squat right there in place. We'll have dumbbells up to $150. We'll have comp benches. What I'm most excited about are the additional things that we're going to do. So I played around with a lot of different types of fitness, and my go-to is just traditional lifting and power lifting. But, I wouldn't mind popping into, some kind of cardio class or a CrossFit class or strongman or something like that. But I don't want to have all these different memberships all over town. So we're going to have all this shit in-house. We're going to have a little cross-training area. We're going to have a strongman area. And what I'm most excited about is we are going to have a jiu-jitsu MMA area. So we'll actually have, the whole gi part of jiu-jitsu, but we'll have MMA training also. So we plan on having just a chain link fence that separates the MMA mats from the floor. So on Saturdays, we can have the big boys in there squatting 600, 700, 800 pounds. And then on the other side is going to be two guys live sparring. And just the atmosphere of that is, I think, what's going to sell the place of its own.
No, I actually think that's a great idea because I've never done jiu-jitsu, but I really want to. I really want to get involved in it. The closest one to me is 45 minutes away. So it's trying to find that extra 45 minutes one way just to go up there and do it. And then it's an hour class, 45-minute hour class, and then it's a 45-minute drive back.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really important because everybody's trying to find time in their day to be able to do all the stuff that they want to do. So to be able to put that extra amenity into a gym is so big. And I think I don't think it's just going to attract the people that want to do jiu-jitsu. I think it's going to attract people that never knew they want to do jiu-jitsu until they're sitting there lifting, looking over every day, seeing these guys roll. And then this guy starts to think about like, oh, you know what? I should probably start doing some cardio. But I don't freaking like cardio.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you look at these guys do jiu-jitsu and they're coming out sweating. Because it's cardio, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's you're just rolling and moving the entire time. And so he's like, man, maybe I should start doing jiu-jitsu. Instead of running over there and jumping on the bike for half an hour, I'll just go and do some jiu-jitsu and then maybe learn some self-defense along the way.
Yeah.
So
Do you have kids?
Like that. I don't have kids.
Okay. So me, I'm a blended family. I have 4 kids. They're right now, I think we're 10, 11, and 12. So it's constantly changing, obviously. But it's impossible for me as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a father of 4, to be able to find a spot in my schedule that I can say, okay, Monday and Wednesday nights, I can go to class from 6 to 7. It just doesn't work for my lifestyle. I personally, as a father, like to attend as much stuff of my children as I can. I go to their practices, I go to their trainings, I go to all their stuff. And what I'm really excited about introducing is we plan on having enough mat area so that way we can have an adult class going at the same time that a kid's class is going. So you can come in and your kid has a class from 5 to 6. He can be over here doing it, and you can be right next to him doing the exact same thing, learning just the same as him. You guys can push each other. You guys both get an experience. Or say you don't want to do that. Say you want to, mom just wants to go walk on the treadmill, or maybe you want to do a cross-training class, or maybe you want to do something else. But the fact that you can kill 2 birds with one stone while you're in here, I think is going to also be a really big factor for our gym.
Yeah, I didn't even think about couples or parents with kids. Like you were saying, you could go to the same facility, kill 2 birds with one stone. That's going to attract someone from going to a completely other gym. Maybe like a club fitness, because almost whatever community you're in, your community you're going to be in is a fairly large size. There's going to be competition.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's going to be competitors. And so what's going to make them go to you versus somebody else? Well, this is an all-in-one stop shop. There's no need to, hey, I'm going to go over here and do jiu-jitsu while you go over here and do this. It's, hey, we go do this, and then the wife's going to do cardio until you're done doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Yeah,
I think that's a freaking brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Because, that's exactly what people want in this life. They're trying to find more time in their day. That's a big reason why I started selling supplements and wraps in mine. And I know you said you're very close with S2 and there's an S2 very close to you. So like from what I understand, they can just literally walk out of your building and walk to the S2. Is it that close?
It's directly across the highway. So we're on one side of 44 and First Form is on the other side.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. It's not that close that I can walk, but it's still pretty close. But for me, it's not close. So for me, it made sense for me to put these supplements and these wraps in my facility because, yeah, it's a round trip, hour and a half drive to the nearest supplement store.
Oh, yeah.
So who wants to freaking go to the gym and then have to go an hour and a half to get a Teller protein? It's just not worth it to them.
Oh, no.
But to have it all in one place, so much more convenient.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, like I agree with you 100%. I just have this really good sister that works at First Form, so
Yeah.
I don't want to burn that bridge.
Yeah, no, and there's things like that like if there was a batting cage straight across from your facility, don't put a batting cage in.
Right.
It probably wouldn't make sense.
Right.
Are you gonna put something like that in? Are you guys gonna have batting cages?
We had actually talked about it because Nick does all these youth athletics, and he had talked about putting in a golf simulator and putting in a little batting cage, but I think that I don't think we get as much out of that as we would out of using the areas for other things. We also are planning, I don't know if it's going to be in the very first phase, but we're also planning on doing an outdoor gym. So right out our back door,
Oh, cool.
we're going to have, you can do it South Cal, or with it,
Yeah, you talking
SoCal
about
style.
yeah, or yeah. That where Arnold used to train at,
Yeah.
right?
Muscle Beach.
You almost have to like weigh out like what's in your area, right? Like you have to figure out like what's my area have and what's my area need,
Right.
because I feel like that's what's going to make a big difference in your facility,
Yeah.
and every area is going to be different. I thought about putting batting cages in mine or outside of mine because we have the nearest one's 45 minutes away, so it's like someone will probably come and pay to use this facility. You said you wanted to be able to have kids come to your facility too. Is that like a concern of yours? Because I know my facility, I don't let anyone under 13.
Yeah,
my
so
facility.
on the floor, I don't know about on the floor. I mean, on the obviously jiu-jitsu and classes and things like that, personal training with youth athletics, that's no big deal. But I guess it all depends on A, the way that people act, and B, how many man people we have in there to keep an eye on everything.
Yeah.
I don't want a group of teenagers to be coming in and causing a bunch of trouble and just hanging out. I don't care if they're paying me $50 a month or not. It's not worth it to make everybody else's experience, terrible. But I don't know. I mean, it's
Something you're going to learn as you go.
Yeah, I mean, because I look at it from both sides. I look at it from a gym goer and from a business owner's perspective, and I also look at it as a father.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, I whenever I opened my gym, I was like, I wanted to see everybody in there. So I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And I actually said anyone 15 and younger 13 to 15, you have to pay what is considered like a dependent, which is $15 a month. And then I started implementing something where basically if you're enrolled in a sport, if you played baseball, football, something like that, you could, from 13 to 15, you could come with an adult.
okay.
That was a member of the gym. So for me, my sales tactic there, other than just to help the kid out to get active, but my sales tactic there was maybe there was a parent that wanted to go to the gym but has a kid and they don't want to pay for the kid to go because maybe the kid's not interested yet, or maybe they just don't want that extra expense. So I said if the kid's enrolled in a sport, they can come for free as long as the parent is.
Yeah, that's
member of
really
the
cool,
gym.
man.
So and I just want to see younger kids get active too. Like I really want to see, because I didn't start lifting until I was 21, and the only reason I didn't lift was because I thought I didn't belong in a gym. I thought I never felt welcome until I finally went to this one gym. They made me feel super welcome. I actually learned how to start lifting, and that's what kept me going.
Yeah.
But I felt like I would have stuck with it if I would have started going at 13. My parents would have taught me. I would have felt more comfortable in it. So that was
I mean, it's completely ingrained in you now. I mean, it's part of your day. You miss a day, and if you would have got that into you at 13 years old, it would have been a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I didn't start lifting until I was about 28 years old. Okay. And, I just kind of, I'll never, I mean, fuck it, I'm pretty bold. I'll never forget my mother asking me, she's like, why are you starting to lift weights at 28? And I'm like, honestly, my marriage was falling apart. And I was like, hey, either one of two things are going to happen. I'm either going to start looking a lot better and my former wife is going to, be more attracted to me, or my marriage is going to end and I'm going to be in killer shape. And unfortunately it ended, but
Sure.
I walked out of that and I had a six pack, dude. I was ripped.
Well, it's a great place. It's a great healthy place to go when you're going through things in life.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's depression, anxiety, like just stress from a divorce, stress from work, whatever. It is way more than just getting in shape.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's getting your mind in shape. It's super helpful. I want to touch on the kids thing real quick before we pass by that. So I started allowing kids of any age. They can come in there as long as their parent was with them the entire time. Where it became a problem was when they signed up, they're like, hey, can I bring my kid? He's 10 years old, 11 years old. Yeah, great. You just have to be with them as a guardian to watch what they're doing. They're like, yeah, that's no problem. No big deal at all. That's exactly what I plan to do. Well, what ended up happening is they need to jump on and do cardio for 10 minutes. The kid doesn't want to do cardio. So they're like, hey, go sit. I'm going to do my cardio. They're not paying attention. They got their headphones on. They're watching their phone. Kids running around the gym, picking up weights. Little girls hanging off the squat rack like they're monkey bars, or vice versa. The dad's over there lifting. He's paying attention to himself in the mirror, looking at himself flex or whatever, not paying attention. Kid goes and jumps on treadmill. Kid doesn't know what he's doing, decides he's going to crank it up to max to see how fast he can run. And the next thing you know, he's getting wung off the back of it. And like at some
That
point,
would help your YouTube channel.
it would if I took the clip and posted it, yes. But it only takes one time. And so I started looking into it. It only takes one time of a kid really getting hurt.
Yeah.
To be the gym isn't that the gym that kid got freaking killed in? Or isn't that the gym that little kid got hurt in? And I also started, not just that. I do care about the kids' safety in there. But I also started kind of paying attention to, say, like the 55-year-old that comes in and they come in the afternoon, they worked all day, they're super tired. They don't want to be in the gym anyway. The only reason they're coming to the gym is because their doctor told them, hey, you're getting old. It's time to start getting in shape.
Yeah.
You can't just go home and drink beers every night. Like, you got to go and do something to stay active, or you're going to have a lot shorter life. So now they're going to the gym. Well, they're on this cable machine, using this cable machine, and this little kid comes over, hops on it, changes all the weights around, takes the increment off of it, and then they start using it. And that's the only excuse they need to walk out of the building. Mm-hmm. Well, this kid's not even paying, and this 55-year-old's paying full gym membership price, and they take care of the place. And now all of a sudden, they're not even coming back anymore because they're just they're using the kid as an excuse not to come back. But I don't want that. I don't want that to be there. When I see someone in the middle of a workout and a kid interrupt it because the parent's not paying attention, and the parents never pay attention.
Oh yeah,
they don't, because it's just like a thing when you have kids, you start to ignore them a little bit. They're screaming and yelling and they're misbehaving, but you're just used to it. It's your kid. You're just used to them doing that stuff, but everybody else isn't.
Right.
And so it almost becomes a burden on everybody else. So I tried it for about a year and a little bit of time, and it got to the point where I started seeing kids not get seriously hurt, but I did watch a kid get flung off a treadmill, straight up. I did watch a kid take a cable machine attachment off of, gentleman stood up, and the kid walked over and took the attachment off and just hopped right in. And the guy was like, what the hell? And I had to go over there and be like, hey, you can't just hop in like that. You gotta,
gym etiquette.
Yeah, you got to have, but this kid's so little.
Yeah.
He's like barely up past my knee. And I just don't feel comfortable going up to someone's kid and say, hey, bud, you can't do that.
Right.
And I watch kids swing from the Smith machine bar, just like a little girl swing from it like it's a monkey bar. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I got to end this. I can't let it happen anymore. So I had to cut it off at 13. I feel like 13, they're starting to develop a brain that can actually comprehend the people that are around them.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, it really has improved the gym atmosphere a lot. Because the kids were just wanting to play. Mm-hmm. They were wanting to sit on the it's like a decline bench for abs. They were just like playing on that while the parents were doing the cardio or something like that. So Once I put that implement minute rule in, where you had to be at least 13, it really started to change. So I would just say, try it, cut it off sooner than later, before you lose. Some
Yeah,
money over
honestly,
it.
I mean, I haven't put that much thought into it, but you made some very valid points there. The biggest problem that I'm going to run into is me trying to make it welcoming for children with like the classes and the training, and at the same time be like, but you're not allowed on the floor.
I would just, I think you could do it. I think there's a way to do it.
Oh yeah,
Because at the end of the day, they're not toys.
right.
And a little kid gets their fingers stuck in between one of those increments, or under an 80-pound dumbbell, or someone hits a little kid with a 45-pound dumbbell
Oh,
or
without a
barbell,
doubt.
they're gonna freaking knock a kid out.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I feel like you could probably make it work. Yeah, but there is. You're gonna have to finesse it in some way to be able to make it work.
Mhm.
And you might be able to make it work too. Like it depends on how your gym setup is. I
Yeah.
feel like if there's a desk where there's somebody looking out over the gym floor all the time, where you could catch it immediately and you could be like, hey, Jimmy, can you make sure your kid's not playing on that? He's got to be with you when he's working out. You can probably figure it out
Right.
pretty quick. Mine has a private office where there's no one watching over the gym floor directly. Now I have cameras on it all. We're sitting there watching it. I made an office rather than a desk because I didn't want people to think I was watching them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to just have a desk where there's someone sitting there watching over the gym. I feel like that might be a little.
So is your place 24-hour access?
It is 24-hour access.
And is it ever manned?
Yes, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Oh, okay.
So that was another problem with it too, is during staffed hours, I could be there to see and say something if somebody brought their kid in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when I'm not there
Right.
that it became a problem. Is that what you're going to do for your facility, or is it going to be non 24/7?
No, it's definitely going to be 24/7. Nick's going to be handling and running all that kind of stuff. To be perfectly honest, initially when I came up with the idea for the gym, it was going to be completely unmanned. It was just going to be free for all, nitty gritty kind of gym. And then this has really grown into something much bigger than I ever envisioned. And, the biggest thing is the overhead. I mean, the difference between having an unmanned gym and having a manned gym is a difference of $5,000 a month easily.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
Now you have someone on payroll,
right.
like literally working 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
So now it's the question of, do you pay them you give them benefits, insurance, retirement, vacation. You start thinking about that, and it's very expensive to have employees.
Oh, yeah.
It can be very expensive to have an
without a
employee.
doubt. Yeah. I mean, you just saw how that snowballed right there.
Yeah. It just really starts, just that alone really adds up.
And nobody really realizes when you have a personal trainer, say he's just 1099, he comes and goes when he wants. My agents are 1099, but on like my construction company, those guys all need to be W-2s, and those W-2 literally cost me, I think it's $2 and like 80 cents an hour is what it costs me to run somebody as W-2, because you have to pay taxes on them, you have to pay Social Security, you have to pay this, that, and the other.
You have to pay a bookkeeper and a CPA to do all the filing for the paperwork for it all.
So yeah, you went from $20 an hour to $22.80 or whatever it is, just by taking them over to W-2. And that adds up quickly.
I will say there's going to be a couple benefits to having someone there that's running the payroll, and you can, depending on how you want to do it. Is Nick planning on running it for the most part?
Yeah, so he's gonna own a separate personal training company, and he's actually going to be running all the trainers and running the gym and everything like that. So he's going to be on site training most of the time. Plus, we're going to have he's planning on having people there actually working manned hours and everything like that. So it'll be more active.
Up?
I think that's why we're going to have somebody in-house, because initially my plan was just to have it all online and do everything like that. I was trying to keep overhead low. One of the big thing was I wasn't looking to create another job for myself. Mm-hmm. This was supposed to be an investment. And that's something that's very important when you're making any kind of business decision in life is, hey, am I making an investment or am I making a job for myself? Mm-hmm. On a side note, like my demolition company was supposed to be just an investment. And then unfortunately, it didn't really work out well with the guy that I invested in, and I had to buy him out. And man, I mean, don't get me wrong, my demolition company and my general contracting company, I'm so glad that I have them with the downturn of the real estate market. But I got a fucking job now.
Yeah.
You know how weird that is?
It consumes a lot of time. Yeah, it sure does.
So back to the gym. Yeah, my plan was I didn't want to create another job for myself. This was supposed to be just an investment. So the fact that I have a business partner that is willing to make this his job is
huge.
It's a blessing. Absolutely.
Tremendous. Yeah. I think it is because you definitely got to have someone. Well, I don't know. I don't. I wouldn't say you have to have someone there. It could be all online. You could send them a card in the mail. Actually, I think I use a program called Gym Assistant.
Okay.
And it's what works a 24-hour door. You can set up an online payment through it. It will literally do everything for you. And they even have an app where you download on your phone, and when you're there, you just click the button on the app, and it'll let you into the building.
Oh, okay.
So you could do it 100% remotely. The problem I would see is people sneaking in with their friends. And Gym Assistant has things to combat that. They have something called a door watcher program. So if Jimmy clicks a button to be able to walk in, and then the door scans 2 people, it'll be like, hey, something's up here.
Right.
Like one person scanned, but 2 people came in. Or if someone just walks up to your door and presses it open and nobody scanned, like if someone's just leaving, which is what you're going to get something for every time. But when someone's leaving, or if someone looks like someone's just opened the door for somebody else, it'll take like 20 still photos of them or video of them, whatever you prefer, and it'll save it as well. So there is ways to combat that, but I feel like whenever people are going to start to figure out, they're like, oh, well, no one's here ever running the place anyway.
Right.
So we can just start to sneak in, which can cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, and we're also going to have tanning and cold plunges and things that really have to be watched. So, I mean, what this gym has morphed into is a lot different than what my original, let's call it business plan. I don't really do business plans.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could, I think someone there also just for customer support is big. Like in my facility, I think people love the fact that I have one person in the office. Now, when I opened up, it was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it was because I wanted to be able to get anyone that came in really early to work out, or maybe someone like paying before work. I wanted to be able to catch anyone at lunch breaks, and then I wanted to catch anyone from 5 o'clock. Because some people get off at anywhere between 3:30 and 5.
Right.
So if someone got off at 5, and I was only open till 5, I was worried I wasn't catching them.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first 6 months, I did 6 to 6.
Okay.
A 12-hour day. But
you did?
Well, I did, and I had some help as well. Yeah, because when I bought my facility, I was running 23-hour days. So what I would do was it was 6 to 6. So at 6 p.m., I would get up 6 a.m., go to the gym, run it with the assistance of somebody else that I hired on. At 6 p.m., I had one of my friends that was helping me in real estate at the time. He would meet me there at 6 p.m. We'd shut the gym down, and we'd start freaking tearing into the place. Because I brought equipment in, but it was a 10,000 square foot building, but it was like chopped up. So there was rooms. So there was cardio in one room. There was some fitness equipment in another room. There was another room for the studio. There wasn't even an office at the time, but there was another office. There was a room for an office at one time. And then there was like a big long room that separated the lobby from the gym floor. And it was just so choppy. And so what I did was every night we'd push all the equipment to the center of the room, and we just started cutting the walls down. And because it's a big metal, like just square frame building, so you could rip everything down. It could just be a big hole. But I wanted some structure in there for water fountains and bathrooms and an office.
Yeah.
But we just reconstructed it at night, and so we'd work till 5 a.m. until the place was going to open back up, clean everything back up, push everything back, and then open up for the day. So I would literally be walking out of the door as my workers coming in at 6, and then I would just go home at 6. I would do every other day, basically 23-hour days, and so I would just go home and sleep. So about noon, get up, go back, do the stuff I could do inside while people are there. Maybe change the lights out, whatever you could do during the day while people are there, and then back at the grind.
So where did you get the original collateral. And two questions. Where did you get the original idea that you wanted to open a gym? And B, where did you get the collateral to get, do you lease the building? Do you own the building? What do you do there?
Yeah, I bought the building.
Okay.
So I own the building. And I got the idea because I had been lifting for like 8 years at that point. And we were in a small community that desperately needed a gym.
Mm-hmm.
And so the facility was actually a physical therapy building when I bought it. It was a 10,000 square foot building. It was physical therapy in it. And the physical therapy decided, well, we're going to put some treadmills, some ellipticals, and some equipment in there. And we'll sell gym memberships on top of it. So that was like their gimmick to make a little bit extra money. It worked for a therapy company because they needed the equipment anyway, but it sucked for a gym.
Yeah.
And so, but because I was there, nobody else wanted to open up another gym in our community because it was just more competition. People were afraid that they weren't gonna have enough business. Well, there was actually it was a nursing home. They opened up a exact same thing, physical therapy with equipment in it. So it was two physical therapy companies that had equipment. One was designed all for elderly because it was part of the old folks home, whatever you want to call it. And then there was this one. So it was two crappy gyms. Well, basically, I knew I wanted to get in the business. I was into real estate. I was making money, but I wasn't making money fast enough. And I wasn't making money fast enough with my 9 to 5 either. It was terrible. You know, I was like, I got to do something to really start to make some money. Sold a house, had some cash in my wallet or my bank. And I was like, this is the make it or break it point. I was like, right now, I either got to jump and make the leap into business, or I just got to pay my house off and just settle for this 9 to 5 lifestyle. And I knew I didn't want to do that.
Right.
I was like, I was miserable where I was at. So then it's like, okay, what business do I open? Like, what do I do? Because I was painting cars at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 5 body shops in this town. Every one of them was good. There was no reason for another body shop to open up. So now I'm going through ideas on my phone while I'm working. Like, you know, do I start buying car washes? I had thought of like making trailers for a while. I was thinking about like making and painting trailers and selling trailers. I thought about like buying a bunch of like dump trailers and having a demo crew.
Mm-hmm.
I had like a list of like 20 different business ideas in my head, and I was like, which one's going to be the best? Gym was on there. And I had started reading some books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. I was listening to podcasts on investors, and very similar to you. I wanted something that was more like an investment rather than like buying another job.
Yeah.
So when I looked at a buy shop, I looked at buying my job, basically is all I was thinking of. And I was like, if I buy a gym and I structure it right, I can pay someone to run it, and you know, everybody be set up reoccurring. It'd be 24 hours, and hopefully I gain some extra time in my life to be able to go chase some other passions I have too. So ultimately, I basically kind of start looking around, and I even made a post on Facebook, said, hey, I'm looking for a building. Like, I was kind of interested in starting a gym, so I was like, hey, I'm looking for a building or a quote on a building if someone could let me know. The lady that owned the gym sent me a message and said, hey, we're interested in selling the building. And I was like, okay. And I was like, how much? And they told me $360,000. And I was like, I had 200 in my head. I was like, I'm buying something for 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's way more. That's almost double
Right.
what I was expecting. And I was like, no. I was like, I don't think I can afford it. And it's more space than I need. And then she's like, okay, no worries. A couple weeks later, she follows up. Hey, we'll sell you the building, and we'll sell you our gym side of it too. So we'll sell out of the gym. We don't want nothing to do with the gym. We just want to keep the therapy company if that's something of interest to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, now we can talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now I'm interested in talking. So I go in and talk with them, and basically they wanted 3,000 square feet of the building. So I was instantly going to gain a tenant that was going to help me pay for the mortgage.
Oh, wow.
So
you leased it back to them?
So I leased it back to them.
Oh, wow.
They had been in business for 15 years. So it wasn't like more than likely they weren't going to go out of business anytime soon.
Right.
And so now I'm just trying to figure out how do I come up with the other money for the other side of the building to be able to afford that mortgage. But it helped me a ton going to the bank and saying, hey, I want to buy this building. It's 10,000 square foot. It's double what we initially said we wanted, but I'm going to have someone paying $1,500 a month rent.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to help me a ton. And then, yeah, it was basically after that, I was like, they're like, if you want it, we got to put a contract on it. I was like, let's do it. Put a contract on it. And it happened so fast. It was just like I had an idea one day, and I had talked about it for years because I love the gym. I love my community. I wanted to see because the gym wasn't 24/7, had no equipment in it. And I had these ideas, and I'm like, I could probably make this work. And then next thing I knew, I put a contract on a building. Next thing I knew, I got approved for the loan. Next thing I knew, and then I was sitting in front of the desk owning it, and I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I was like, I went to closing one day, got the keys, and I just showed up one day. I never shut the gym down. So they had 100 members when I bought it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, yeah, it did help getting the business started. But I just show up, and now I have to take care of these 100 members, and I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. I was literally sitting behind this desk like, what did I just do? I just bought a fitness facility. But as far as financing it,
yeah, how did they structure your loan? Is that like an SBA loan, or was it a real estate loan, or was it just
real
an
estate
in-house? Because we're in a small town here, and they do things differently.
Yeah, it was a small bank, and it was not like a big corporate bank. It was a in-house loan that they sold to a out-of-state bank, and we did just a real estate loan on it. But they wouldn't do you could do a lot of like a house loan. You can do 30 years. A investment loan you can do 25 most of the time. I think we did 20 years as max they wanted to do, and they wanted 20. What was it? They wanted 20% down at first, and I was like, damn, okay. I was like, I'm gonna need some time to figure that out because that was like all the money I had. It was $80,000. It was every penny I had basically. Yeah. I'm like, all right, let me figure it out. I was like, let me see if I can do it. And then next thing I know, I'm like, let's just do it. I'll figure it out. Like I'll just figure it out along the way.
That's my whole life.
Dude, that's what you got to do sometimes. They're like, just figure it out. I had a rock star banker at the time that worked there, and she's what's like made a lot of things in my life possible. Because she's like, we're gonna tell them $80,000, we can make it happen. She's like, you have the money, we're gonna make it happen. And she's like, I'll see what I can do about pulling some strings somewhere else. So she's like, I'm going to get with the financer of the bank. I'm gonna run it by the board. We're gonna do some numbers. We're gonna figure some stuff out. She's like, I'll let you know in a couple weeks. A couple weeks go by. She calls me back, and like I had offered like equity because I had like 5 rental properties at the time, and I had a bunch of equity out there that at the time was like during COVID, I tried to refinance them all, get my equity back so I could put down payments on something. And they wouldn't refinance them because everybody was getting a loan because everything's at 3%. So I was kind of mad. I wasn't mean to her, but I was just like, hey, make sure these people know that I was trying to refinance and get more cash back. So I should have $120,000, $140,000, $50,000 in my bank. But you guys are the ones that wouldn't refinance it. So that's the reason why I don't have as much cash as I should.
Right.
And so a couple weeks go by, she calls me back and she's like, hey, we can do what's called a secondary loan on your properties. If you're interested, we can just use some equity as a secondary for the property. She's like, are you okay with that? And I was like, well, am I going to have like a second mortgage on everything now where I'm going to have to I don't want to take my properties from going cash flowing to not cash flowing.
Right.
So where now I have 5 payments, now I have 10 payments, and I'm not cash flowing. I'm like, I don't want to put myself in that kind of position. And she's like, no. Secondary is solely we take it and we hold up $30,000 from a property. Let's just say, you don't pay nothing on it. If you go belly up on your gym, we take that $30,000 in equity from your property to get paid down. Oh. And I was like, fine. I don't even after that, I was like, I don't even care if I go belly up on the gym because as long as someone's in that house, it's still getting paid for.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm like, I'm good. I don't have an extra payment. And you guys, it's just like blue sky or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't actually have like a physical payment on it. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. That's good. And then, so she's like, okay, let me run it by them, see how much they want. And they did want a little bit extra. I think they wanted like, they initially said 35%. I said, absolutely not. I was like, it's still cash at the end of the day. Like it's still money I have to pay back. And I think I think we finally settled like 25%, but I only paid like 3% cash out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest was secondaries. And it was pretty smooth sailing.
Dude, that's what a lot of people don't realize is that how important connections are and how important it is to talk to an individual. Like, whenever I try to get financing, I don't go to a corporate bank. All they see is a piece of paper. Like we got talking about before about rental applicants, about how one thing, what it says on paper could be completely different what their life was. And I did business with a bank one time, which unfortunately didn't turn out well. But that the moral of my story is I'll never forget what the guy said to me. He goes, sometimes what people lack in dividends, they make up in character. And they literally, they were from Farmington, Missouri. All my rentals were, 45 minutes, an hour north of them in Afton. They had never been in this market at all. They wanted to expand. And they came up and did all my loans and gave me a great rate. And they actually did one thing that I was worried about at the time was balloon notes. After we just had 2008 and all the foreclosures and everything like that, the last thing that I wanted to do was get into a 5-year balloon, because at the end of 5 years, who knows what the world's going to be like and whether or not they're going to want to close out my loan, whether they're going to want to refinance it, whether the interest rate's going to go from, 3% to 8% if I had to refi it. And there was too many variables, and this small bank was willing to do, it was an ARM, but it was a 15-year loan on a 15-year amortization, and it reset every 3 or 5 years. But there was like a limit to how much it could go up. So my interest rate couldn't go up more than like 2% over the life of the loan. And it was a wonderful loan. Unfortunately, the bank was pretty crooked and we had problems in the future. But the fact that they were doing it in-house, they had a lot more options than their hands were tied. On another note, you talk about this commercial loan and how they were able to do unique things. Commercial loans are, don't quote me on this. I don't want to say that they're fully unregulated, but in comparison to the laws that they have for residential loans, it is completely different. It is completely different. As long as it makes sense, they can do it. They don't have all this red tape. They don't have all these rules and regulations that they have on private residential loans. So a lot of people start out investing and they're like, hey, I'm gonna jump into this house and then I'm gonna buy this house that I live in. Then I'm gonna call back that mortgage broker that sold me my own personal house and buy a rental house with them. Well, there's a lot of red tape going that direction. If you go and say, hey, I want to do a rental home with a bank, they can do it as a commercial loan. And then it is such an easier product to get through. But no, back to what you were saying, man, that's killer, dude. I love the fact that they were able to get creative with you and work with you and make it work, that it completely made sense. The last thing you want to do is, hey, yeah, now I've got $2 million worth of houses and businesses, but I have no equity. I have no cash flow. I have nothing. I'll be the first to tell you, man, I'm worth a lot of money on paper, but between all my investments and all my kids, life gets expensive really fast.
Well, and I think everybody has to go through that phase at some point. And at some point you gotta just trust the process.
Yeah.
And something I also try to always remind myself, and it's hard to do sometimes when you're broke and you're watching I would say broke, not poor, broke, because I think there's a difference between being broke and poor.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're broke, it's just you don't have any money at that time, but there is still a plan or a process to make that money come back. There is still hope. But when you're poor, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
And you're just poor forever. If you can't get out of that poor mindset, you're going to stay poor. But if you're broke, as long as you have a rich mindset, you will eventually come out of that funk.
There's so much money that's out there that's available that people don't even realize. One of my very favorite tricks that not a lot of people do, and I've done this 3 separate times with 2 separate people, is say you want to do a flip, or even say you want to buy a house and then turn it into a rental and you need that short-term financing. you go to like a hard money guy and you're 10 to 15%, you're paying points up front, you're interest only, you're all this kind of stuff. So this wasn't my idea. This was actually a gentleman that lent me money. This was his idea. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And don't get me wrong, interest rates are a little bit different now than they were at that time. But for the most part, over the last few years, up until we just had this big rate hike, you could get a line of credit with an introductory rate of 0.99%. All these different banks would advertise it. So what you do is you just find somebody that doesn't realize that they have money, somebody that has equity in their home. And you go to them and you say, hey, man, you've got a $200,000 home. You owe 50 grand on it. Why don't you go to the bank, pull out a home equity loan, and say you pull out $100,000. Then you lend me that $100,000, and I will pay you 10% on that money. So let's just say that what I do is 10% interest only, paid in arrears after 6 months. So they gave me 100 grand, I give them back $110,000. On the flip side, they're paying $1,000 a month is what they're paying to hold this. So they just made 4 grand off of money that they didn't even realize that they had.
Yeah.
And I've done this a couple times now, and it helps out everybody. I get a better rate. They get money that they didn't even realize. They made money off of money they didn't even realize that they owned. So there's that one. And then another one that I'm a big fan of, I've yet to do this, but most people don't realize this, is you can do a self-directed IRA, self-directed 401k. So instead of going to your financial analysis or analyzer and say, hey man, buy me shares of Coca-Cola, you can say, hey, I'm going to take the money from my 401k and I'm going to use it as 20% down to buy an apartment complex. I'm going to use it 20% down to buy a house, or I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And you can actually use that money and use that money from your 401k. It's in a tax haven. You can use it as a down payment for another property, and then you can take that property. The only rule is any money that property makes has to go back into the 401k. So, because it's just an investment. Now, your workaround is that you own Ryan's property management company, and Ryan's property management company charges $300 a month.
Sure. And you have to you have to pay them first. It's part of the expense of taking out the loan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. So I invest through Edward Jones for stocks. And they will, depending on the account, you got your traditional, you got your Roth, you have, you can have just a money market through Edward Jones. So depending on which one it is, I know like the traditional and the Roth, they will let you pull out, like say if you have 100,000 in there, you can pull out a certain amount, I think it's 50%, and you can just use it as a loan to yourself. And then you just pay back that at 6% interest rate. But you could put your money, say if you have $100,000, you can put $100,000 in the money market instead of putting it in a savings account. And that money market, you can pull out at any time at 0% interest. And it's a savings account through Edward Jones.
Yeah.
And it's just a money market that they have invested, and you're making 5-6% on your money rather than making like 1% that you do on your savings account at your bank. But most people don't even understand that you can do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I have thought about it because I do have some money at Edward Jones. So I've thought about trying to just go that route for it.
Yeah.
I'm like at the process right now. I've never used a home equity or a line of credit before. So I'm trying to get a line of credit on some of my properties to try to use it. But
I got to be careful, man. You go from having a $5,000 credit card to a $150,000 credit card, and you're like, hey, that truck looks pretty cool. Or, hey, that vacation would be really nice. It takes a lot of self-control.
Now, like are you talking with the line of credit?
Yeah. So all a line of credit is just a big fat credit card. It's just that it's collateralized. You got your house as collateral on it compared to an uncollateralized credit card, which is why a credit card is 23% and a home equity line is probably 8 or 10 or something right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm getting ready to go through that process because I want to get a line of credit. Mainly just to buy some properties.
Yeah.
Is all I want to do is try to buy some properties with it.
Oh, just to have it there. I mean, you come across deals all day long. You don't realize it. There's so many people in the world that every day you have a chance to become rich. And most people say, oh, I can't do that. And you need to change that mindset to how can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're sitting there with $50, $100, $150,000 in the bank, and it can be anything, man. You can be like, hey, here's a pallet of water bottles for $1.
Yeah.
You can buy that, sell it for $10. I mean, there's always an opportunity out there,
Yeah.
That falls in your lap. And as long as you have the funding available, and especially when it's just a line of credit and all you got to do is use it, you don't have to go through any red tape to get access to the money.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're buying a house that needs some work. Because when you're buying a house that needs some work and you're trying to get a loan for it, the bank wants to throw up every red flag they can to keep you from buying it because they're trying to stay out of these investments. But those are the kind of deals that are going to make you money.
Yeah.
If it was a nice house, you'd be paying a premium for it and it would never rent.
Yeah.
You got to get the ones that need some work that or whatever. Maybe someone's in some financial trouble and need to get out of quick, but they don't want to put a new porch on it. They have to be able to sell it. So to be able to have that line of credit is huge. My one worry for it is that banks act like they can refinance your loan really fast. So like I've been told before, like if you buy a house, say you buy a house for $100,000 with your line of credit, they're like, oh, if you decide you want to keep it, we can just refinance it really quick. But I learned a long time ago that they can't refinance it really quick, like they say. Line of credit, so you're only paying interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you're paying for, right?
Right.
Like you don't actually have a payment on it.
No.
So even if you bought a house at $100,000, you're only paying the interest on $100,000 every month.
Yeah. So like I said, all it is a big fat credit card. So you're just using it. You just put your house on a credit card. But the benefit of it is if you need to run to the hardware store, you need to run here, you need to do that. You don't have to pull draws. You don't have to go through all this red tape. You don't have to anything. You can literally just use it as much as you want or as little as you want. And you can actually connect accounts to it. So that way you can like use it like a debit card and everything like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be interest only. So if you want to pay down principal, you have to do that manually. You have to do that yourself. And then, but yeah, the big thing is just your plan is to refinance out of it when you're done. And it goes back to the Burrs method. It's just simple math. Most banks require 20% down. So instead of buying a house 20% down, we're going to do it in arrears. We're going to buy a $60,000 home. We're going to throw 20 grand into it. It's worth 80. Actually, we've got 80K into it now. It's worth $100,000. So the bank is going to only loan up to 80% of that value, hence 20% down.
Yep.
So they give you your 80 grand back, you pay off your credit card, and now you have permanent financing on this house, and you can start the whole process over again.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's some huge benefits to
And
it.
then
Sure.
if you do it in-house, if you do it like, being a rural bank here, they should be able to streamline that pretty quick. If they're just doing it in-house. I mean, 2-week close, probably 2 weeks to 30 days. I mean, 30 days is normally your standard. So,
Well, I'm at the end with this bank I'm with right now. They're not wanting to make any deals happen unless they're like the perfect deal where it's like the business has to be set up. Like if I'm looking at a business or a real estate property, it has to be set up perfectly for them, or they just don't want to make it happen, or they want me to just pay out way more than what I really should be paying out. They don't want to use any of my equity for anything. And it's to the point now where it's like, if you guys aren't valuing, like my equity, like the equity is money to me. And so when someone doesn't value equity, to me, it's just like, well, what am I doing here? What's the point of having all this equity or even to see potential in a business or in a rental property? Because I feel like that's where you make your money.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it's funny, I've been in this one now for 12 years now, and to watch the cycle of the business change, or excuse me, the cycle of the bank change. And what I mean by that is I do my, my regular banking and all my businesses and everything that through Regions Bank, which is just a big national bank, and it works out well because there's locations all over the place. I do all my financing through little banks. With that being said, when I got into this, I went to Regions and I'm like, hey man, I want to start buying some houses. And they're like, we're not going to do anything with that, sir. It's 2012. We just had a huge housing crash. We've lost billions and trillions of dollars. Forget about it. And then you fast forward about 5 years and I'd be walking in there to get a cashier's check for earnest money or get this and that. And they're like, what's this for? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go buy another house with it. And they're like, we should sit down and talk about you doing some banking with us. And I'm like, hey, man, that's funny because like 5 years ago, you want nothing to do with it. Now you're kind of begging me to do this. So
you shot yourself in the foot a long time ago. Yeah, I can't. I just don't like I don't like whenever I talk to somebody about something like that, and they just can't see. They don't even want to look for the opportunity.
Yeah,
because I'm like, I feel like there's always opportunity somewhere.
Well, they work for a bank Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah,
they don't have that entrepreneur spirit. They don't understand them.
No, and that's
look
why
at the black and white.
That's why I have a hard time talking to these people at the bank because we don't think the same. All they know how to do is run numbers.
Yeah.
They don't know how to see deals. Like when I walk through a house that's full of trash and the windows are all busted out of it, I'm looking at a house with brand new hardwood floors and brand new windows in it.
Oh yeah.
I don't even see the trash in it.
Oh, yeah.
I like when someone tells me that house is $20,000, when I'm walking through it, I see $120,000.
Oh yeah.
That's how my brain works. But their brain does not view things like that at all. And it's just like to have someone like that around can be like very very bad. I was trying to think of the word, but something that is just like eating at your potential for your future to grow. Whether you're in real estate or whether you're owning a gym, if you have someone that's thinking like that, like when you're looking at like maybe adding a tanning bed to your facility and you're going to the bank and you're like, hey, I need another $25,000. I need to buy a tanning bed. And if they look at it like, well, it's going to cost you $10,000 for the bed and then it's going to be, $5,000 to remodel. We don't want to do that. And it's like, yeah, but how much money is it going to make me every single month? Those are the kind of banks you got to stay away from.
Yeah, the risk versus reward. And, there's a yin to a yang. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there definitely is a place for them with risk management and everything like that. But I don't know. It's just frustrating. I mean, you talk about rich dad, poor dad. I mean, this is a perfect example. You've got one dad that spent his entire life working and being responsible and just kind of stagnant in life. And then you got the other dad who's making risks all the time and he's flourishing. He's living this independent life, and you're not going to change people. You're not going to change the way that they think. So
yeah. And a lot of times the guys that are working in the bank are those poor dads.
Yeah.
Like if you guys have never read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's probably one of the best financial literacy books out there. It's like a must, like when you're getting started or trying to learn in life and just figure out like what do I got to do differently so I don't stay in this lifestyle. It's one of those that you definitely want to read.
That's actually the only book that I've read twice in my life. And
oh, really?
I read it probably about 5 years apart just to put a fire underneath me. And I actually used to order copies of it, like 10 at a time, and just hand them out to people. I mean, it's that good of a book.
I've done the same thing. Not 10 at a time, but I definitely have ordered a couple extra copies and just given it to people in my life that I want to see succeed or wanting to like change some things. And I'm like, take this book, read it, tell me it doesn't make an impact on you. And what's crazy is I've actually had people that are so resilient against like that type of lifestyle, the entrepreneurial lifestyle, that they're just combative every time they say everything, and they just want to challenge anything they say. And it's like, well, yeah, it's not going to work out for you if that's just your mindset.
Yeah.
But if you, because there is risk to it all. It does sound a little crazy to go put yourself $100,000 in debt so you can make $1,200 a month.
Oh yeah.
For a lot of people, it's hard to see that, but there is a method to the madness.
Have you ever played his game, his cash flow game?
Yep, I did. I bought it. Yeah.
Have you ever played? There's a digital
like an online
copy.
version.
Yeah.
No, I never even knew that.
Dude, it's like dial up. It's like MS DOS. I mean, it's old school, but it's really cool because, and again, I'm still waiting for this point in my life. But it's you play this game and you make all these financial decisions, and you're just kind of making it buy, and then all of a sudden there's a tipping point, and then it is a completely different world, and that's it really, the game is genuinely reflects life as far as decisions, as far as buying and selling properties, as far as life decisions, as far as children, as far as all these different things that are actual real parts of your daily life.
Yeah, and a big takeaway from the book is knowing the difference between a liability and an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's like if I had to tell somebody like one thing from the book that it teaches you is to know the difference between an asset which makes you money and a liability which takes money out of your pocket.
Yeah.
I think once people start to realize that, you can really start to make a difference. But it doesn't happen overnight. You have to work towards it, and there takes a lot of chance, and you have to sacrifice a lot. A lot of times you have to sacrifice a lot, and you say you're still waiting for this point, but I bet that you're a lot better off than maybe you would be without it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you weren't following some stipulations from that book.
Dude, there's so many people that look up to me and it's like, I want what he has. And I'm just sitting here like, there's so many people that are like, hey man, why don't you come like a coach? And I'm like, because I haven't made it. And they're like, what the fuck you mean you haven't made it? And I'm like, dude, like I'm not ready to coach people yet. I can't be a coach until I succeed to the level that I want to.
Yeah.
Have you read he's got like 10 books, 12 books or something like that.
Yeah.
There's one of them that
I might have it here.
that really stood out to me. Is it the cash flow quadrants or something like that?
Yeah, cash flow quadrant, which I have behind that book, which is actually one that I recommend more.
That's the one that's employee, self-employed, investment, and
big business.
Yeah.
So,
That one really. The biggest takeaway that I had from that was the difference between being a business owner and being self-employed.
yes. Yep.
And I mean, the best way to sum that up is that a business owner literally has to work, a self-employed person literally has to work in their business all day long. You can be a doctor, but you have to practice in your partnership.
You're the doctor, you're the one operating.
Yeah.
You're the one having to show up every day to do that job. You might own your own practice, but you're the one physically doing the brain surgery.
Right. And if you don't show up to work, then it all falls apart.
Yeah. No money's made.
As a business owner, literally it's a self-running machine. And you can be sitting on the beach and it's still producing income for you.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. I know I talked a couple times now about not creating my own jobs.
Yeah.
Making sure that they're investments. And that's something that I really learned from that book.
And this book was a big reason why I chose a gym over a body shop, because I was worried about creating my own job. I was like, what happened? Well, somebody's still got to write the estimates on the cars. And then what happens when the painter doesn't show up? What happens when the body man doesn't show up? What happens when the freaking detailer doesn't show up? I'm the one having to fill that stuff in so the job can go out, so I can make the money, because you got to put out the money before you can make the money.
Right, absolutely.
So it was like, if someone doesn't show up, I'm the one working that day.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why I chose a gym over anything else. One, because it could help my community, but also because I was like, yeah, what can I do to get as close to having a business rather than a self-employed job? Yeah, this was the book that did that for me. It's an awesome book as well. It's one that, if somebody really like Rich Dad, Poor Dad feels connected to it, and they're on the fence about if they should continue reading it, like Robert Kiyosaki's books or not, this is a huge one.
Yeah, I'd say he's probably got 10 of them. I mean, he wrote one with Donald Trump. He wrote one with somebody else. I mean, he's got the Midas touch. There's a whole bunch of different ones that he has, but yeah, that one was a really good one right there. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, I will say these are the only two I've read, and he's what really like sparked me to keep wanting to grow. Because like right now, I'm getting ready to really make a big pivot in my YouTube channel. So like right now, it's just Ryan Wilson Podcast, and I bring small business owners on, and I share their stories because I want people to be entrepreneurs. I want people to go out and start their own business and have this freedom, and create financial freedom for themselves.
Yeah.
And be a little bit happier in life, and just live life to the fullest. So Robert Kiyosaki really taught me to keep pursuing more and more. So that's why I keep pursuing more and more. But I started to realize on my channel that if I really want to help people, which is the point of my channel, I need to niche down to what I know. And I really know gyms.
Yeah.
Like I really know the fitness industry really well. And so like I'm getting ready to make a pivot on the channel to where I just start making like just gym videos. I'm really going to start putting it out like for the people that don't own a gym, or maybe 6 months into a gym, or maybe planning on owning a gym in a year or 2 years. I'm really starting to pivot my channel that way. But yeah, I would say that's the one problem with Robert Kiyosaki. He's going to make you want to dream. He's going to make you want to go even bigger in life. And so that's who I was like, and like I just went to a conference. It's called FinCon. It's a financial conference this past weekend. And those guys are looking at me like, what are you doing? Because I'm the one to make a channel for my future self. and they're like, well, you don't know your future self, so how are you going to put out content for that person? They're like, put out the content for your past self on the stuff that you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that makes a lot more sense because like, yeah, a lot of my content might not be as informative because yeah, I'm learning along as I go. I'm going to try to juggle both. I hope I don't screw up my channel somehow by doing that, but because I still like I have a product. I kind of talked to you about it. I have a product that I'm going to make. I'm in the process of making, so I'm going to keep continuing that direction. But I think I'm pivoting my channel to I want to bring gym owners on like yourself, people that are going into it or own currently, and I want to try to I'm going to try to get their story and like try to help people, like because I whenever I was starting a gym,
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody.
Right.
And it was like, okay, what do I do? How do I, like, what program do I buy to start this gym? Like, to operate the door? What equipment do I need to buy? Like, how do I structure it? Like, how we talked about, like, do you allow someone 13 and younger in? There's so many things to running a gym that it's going to be really hard to know unless there's somebody out there that has done it already to be able to give you that information. So I think that's what my new channel or my channel is going to pivot to.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about being out there and be able to help educate people. I mean, there's so many things that I have learned from business, just from other business owners. In your perspective here, or in your situation, you're getting it out to the masses. And like what you came to my guys' night the other night, do you know the amount of information that I've learned from those guys is just simply incredible. And for those guys that don't know, what I do is man, I told you about my son that was really sick. I told you about me getting divorced. And when all that happened, like I realized that, oh shit, I don't have any friends, man. Like, I was in my early 30s and all of my life from the 20s had kept me from doing stuff. So just being a knucklehead on social media and everything like that on Facebook, I'm 39 years old, so I use Facebook. Just being a knucklehead on Facebook, finally I was like, hey, you know what? Once a month, we're just going to have a guys' night. Whoever wants to come out is welcome to come out. And we have core guys. We have, probably 5 guys that are core guys. The night that you came out, it was kind of a quiet night. There was a lot of stuff happening in life right then that people didn't come out. But, I've had anywhere from 2 guys show up. I've anything to 15, 20 guys show up. Some of these guys, make $10 an hour and live in their car. Some of these guys are multi millionaires, and they just all come out and we just shoot the shit and talk about life and talk about business. And there was so many things like getting into general contracting. I didn't know. There was nothing I knew about terms and agreements and things like that. And all these guys they were happy to share that information. And it's so important to have a group of people that want you to succeed as much as you want to succeed. And the fact that you're doing this and giving those people that, don't have, you live in a pretty small town here.
Yeah.
I live in a big city, that's full of people. I've got resources everywhere that I turn. You don't. And there's a lot of people that are out there that don't have these resources. Say you're in a poverty-stricken area and you want to get up. How do you connect with people that are business owners and things like that? This is the way that they get educated is through stuff like what you're doing here with this podcast.
Yeah, most of America is small towns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, there's lots of big cities, but there's people all over living in these small towns. And now the power of the internet has connected us all. And they're all dreamers. I mean, most of the people that live in this country are not from this country. Actually, everyone that lives in this almost everyone, I guess. I guess there's some Native Americans and stuff that were originally here, but most of the people who are here are bred from dreamers.
Oh yeah,
that hopped on a boat and traveled here at some point. And so I think it's in us all to want to grow some. And now, yeah, I have this platform now where I'm able to, like whether it's a gym owner or a gas station owner or maybe like a boat company owner or something like that, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone that's on this banner behind you has a different business and has came on and shared their story. And I guarantee that maybe the concrete guy down there that shared his story might inspire someone else to start their own concrete company one day. And that's what I love so much about it. And I'm going to continue to do it. That's what I was telling Ariel. Like, that was I fear not doing that, like not putting that out there, because I could be taking that away from someone that is needing it in their life. So that's why I told her, I'm like, I think what I need to do is I need to put out what I know best, and that's how to run a gym, and give that content to people, but also be able to share these stories, because I can't tell someone how to open up a concrete business. I can't tell someone how to open up a pharmacy or run a meat market or nothing like that, but somebody else can. And so to be able to have that platform is cool to do too.
It's amazing. You never realize where you're going to get a piece of information that can really help you out. And us just shooting the shit here, hopefully somebody's picked something up that can help them out. But the other day I was talking to a guy, and he asked me about how I got into my demolition company. And my demolition company, I'll make the story quick. There was a guy that opened it up. I knew the guy. He didn't have much equipment. I'm a guy that buys every tool that there is. I love tools. I love equipment. And so I went to him, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'll tell you what. For 25% equity in your company, you can use all my tools and equipment. You have to maintain it. Once a month, I get a profit and loss and a paycheck. And every 3 months, we sit down and just talk about business and see what we can do to help out and grow it and everything like that. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out with him. I had to buy him out of the company, but I got that idea of all places from 50 Cent. I read 50 Cent's book, and that's what he did with Vitamin Water. Vitamin Water was like, hey, we want you to be our spokesperson. And he's like, well, instead of that, I'll be your spokesperson, but I want equitable share in the company. Mm-hmm. And dude, he got filthy rich off of that. When they sold that out. And, so you never, ever know where you're just going to pick up a random piece of information that could really just be life-changing for you.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I know that I've, I don't know where I found Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know where I found Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
It's crazy where, a lot of people just going about their life, and then just, someone might recommend a book to you. You might accidentally watch a clip on something that makes you watch a movie, or pick up a random book, or who you never really know. But yeah, there's all this stuff that really can impact someone's life. But unless 50 Cent wrote his book, you would have never learned about it.
Yeah.
You would have never learned to do that in your situation that you're in. And so I think it's important. I almost think it's like needed of me. Like it's like my duty to be able to share it, because I needed it so bad in my life. And that's why I go to these networking groups, mm-hmm. because I needed it so bad that's why I started my podcast. So I could reach out to business owners and talk to them about what they're doing in their business. And now it's grown, and like my business is good, and like I'm pretty confident with it, and I still try to grow it, but it's pretty damn good business. Yeah. My members are really happy. My workers are happy. My bank account's pretty happy. Like it's all pretty good. And so now I pivoted to, I just want to share the story and help other people. But yeah, like I needed it bad at one time, and that's why it's so important, because I'm like, man, there's got to be another kid out there that's just like me, just desperately wants to start a gym, but doesn't know how and doesn't know who to turn to, because there's small towns all over that need gyms.
So did you listen to podcasts before you got into them? Before you got into hosting one?
Yeah, I'm just a doer too. Like so I listened to Joe Rogan podcast, was my big one that I started to listen to. But there's lots of other ones that I would listen to as well. But Joe Rogan's really if you my layout is very similar to Joe Rogan, and it has very little to do, my layout has very little to do with Joe Rogan's. Joe Rogan's is just set up ideally, the way his TV set up, the computer set up to the podcast is all, it's set up really, really well.
Yeah.
For the tech that is required for it all. Also the relevance for the TV, everything like that. But yeah, it was things like that inspire me. And I'm a doer. I don't watch, if I'm watching basketball, NBA, I don't want to keep watching NBA. I want to go out there and actually shoot some hoops. That's who I am. If I listen to a podcast and I like it, I want to start a podcast.
So on a side note real quick. So I said before, I don't write business plans. Have you ever written a business plan?
Never written a business plan.
Dude, no. I very much think that people that sit there and write things down and think about them and analyze them and see what could go wrong here, here, and here, how are we going to keep that happen, they're never going to get shit done. They're sitting there thinking about it too much. Where what you said before, I forget exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines of, we're just going to figure it out as we go.
Yeah. You got to be a doer.
Yeah.
You got to be a doer. You just got to go out and try. Can't be scared to jump. Now, I think there is, like, once you jump, I think there is, like, you got to figure it, like, if you really want to get really good at it, you got to do P&Ls. You got to figure out things in your business to make it better. One of these YouTube speakers that I was listening to at FinCon this past weekend, he said he scripts his entire video before he posts it. But when he started his channel, he said for the first 2 years, it didn't hardly grow at all. But what he did was just started it. And he was just posting videos. And he was just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what would stick. And when it didn't stick, he's like, okay, not going to do that again. We're going to do another one. And he learned that he's like, okay, this is what works out really well. So I'm going to keep doing that in every video. And then he just starts to learn as he went. And he learned that he does it best when he scripts everything out. Like if he wants to do a video, Ariel, do you remember what he did? It was something financial, not tech.
It was very specific, but I don't.
Yeah, it was like some I don't think it was tech, but it was like maybe like taxes or something like that. And he just realized if he wrote everything down first and scripted, he would actually put it in front of a prompter and record his video. And like it'd be like 5 tips to maximize your taxes. And he would prompt it all out and he'd read it off the prompter. And he's like, that's how I get my best videos. Because he's like, I can clearly think and revise it, everything like that. Yeah, so I think there is that importance to that point of it. But as far as like, there's people that they get too scared. The analysis paralysis people, and we've seen that too at the conference. We've seen people there that they want to start a podcast. They want to start investing in real estate, but they want to go to another conference. They need to read another book. They need one more thing. They need another 10. They're like, well, we need to save up another $10,000 for it. And there's always something that's keeping them from making that leap.
Oh yeah. And
you just got to make the leap and figure it out as you go. Now, when you're figuring it out as you go, you better start figuring it out.
Yeah.
but sometimes, you like, it's just rip the Band-Aid or whatever you want to say. Like, you got to just do it. And then once you're there, figure it out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because like I think if I just sat around and tried to figure out how to make this YouTube channel work, I would just never do it. Because there's a billion videos out there and there's a million conferences and a million books you can read on how to make a successful YouTube channel, or you can just start doing it and figuring it out as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's very important. Do you want to end on that note?
Yeah.
I know you got like a bit of a drive home, so I don't want to hold you up all night.
Big city.
But Joey, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely,
today.
man.
I hope everybody that's listening enjoy it. If you guys are still listening, make sure you guys go like and subscribe. What is your new gym going to be called?
It's Major League Muscle.
Major League Muscle. And if you guys most of my listeners are in Missouri, and actually in the demographic that are probably going to be looking at your gym. So he's going to be in Fit, Missouri, correct?
Yes.
And it's called Major League Muscle. When are you going to be opening up? When do you hope? What are you hoping? Because it's not open.
Well, as of today, we had to start paying rent on January 1st, so I need to be open by then.
Okay, so hopefully by the New Year's, if you're around the Fitton area, go check it out. Look up Major League Muscle on Facebook. You guys already have a page, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do you guys have an Instagram page too for it? I'm
pretty sure we do, yeah.
I was going to say, that Instagram and Facebook are my two big visitors for my followers because it hits both demographics of people. But go check them out. Give them a like. I'm sure they'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be a pretty dope gym when it's open. I know right now, Fitton, and they do not have a lot to offer. they have like basically, I don't even know if they have a Planet Fitness. I'm sure.
I know we got a Club Fitness over there. It's about 1.5 miles from us. There's a Krav Maga place right down the street.
Which is that like is that a mixed martial arts?
I don't really know what Krav Maga is. I think you fight people that have weapons.
Okay, yeah. So it's like it's a gym, but it's not
right.
It's not going to have equipment in it. I know there's like an Orange Leaf there, which is just strictly class based. So you're kind of going to be an innovator.
Yeah, I'm going to be an ADD of gym.
Yeah. So you're gonna have a little bit of it all, but I think that's what people are going to want.
Yeah.
It's coming to that point in the world now where people don't want to go to 10 different places to be able to. That's why Walmart's so big.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like it's a one-stop shop. That's what people are looking for. Joey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Man.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was a good one.